have just 10 bombs to make their way through that opening sequence, and it can be very difficult. And with that, our runners are starting up the seed, and our uncle is leaving Link's house here with no sword, so we know that we won't get a sword item here. mkosler picks up 10 arrows from Link's house and makes his way out into the world. It's a rainy day, and he's wearing the Boo costume, so it looks like we see a quick map check there with a crystal palace up on Tower of Hera, with 2 pendant dungeons in Eastern and Desert. The Desert Palace, of course, being the green pendant. So very interesting start. Low kind of crystal turnout here. So hopefully for our runner's sake, they'll see some Dark World access as soon as possible. g3rd0 first down into the well, picks up the Fire Rod, which, although it is a magic weapon, we are... it's one of the nicer ones to get, especially since there's a fairly good chance that we're going to see Turtle Rock as a required dungeon, and so that's just one less item that we need to get at. So now with this Fire Rod, of course, as I said before, the runners are going to want to be making use of it in a reserved and controlled manner. They do want to find that bomb pickup before they get to the back half of the escape sequence, just so that they don't have to return here along the way. Now, mkosler there sees that he's got a full magic pot drop, so was willing to use a little bit more magic power there in order to try to collect up a bomb, but unfortunately did not get anything. Picks up a couple of keys here, and still no bombs. All right, and our second blue guard chest just has a big 20 rupees, so still nothing too exciting. No bombs yet for either of the runners. And it turns out we'll see what happens here in Zelda's chest as g3rd0 makes quick use of that ball and chain guard, picks up 50 rupees, so she was hoarding a small pack. Not what either runner would like to see at this time, but it is what they will have to work with. All right, and at this point, 3 minutes, 21 seconds in, that's a very good time for this escape sequence. Fire Rod is actually a very quick item. It one-shots pretty much everything that you're going to find in here, and as long as you're able to find that bomb sequence, or find that bomb to finish off this sequence, it usually ends up being one of the quicker starts. Of course, in the event that you use up all your magic and you have to go out of the way to pick up some additional magic pots, it can slow things down. We'll see what happens. g3rd0 just electing to use one of the pots there to kill one of those green guards. Doesn't want to waste any additional magic at this point. mkosler also taking the opportunity to get 2, picks up a little bit of magic, which allows him to kill that 3rd green guard, but does not actually net him any bombs yet either. And g3rd0 is now pushing the mantle out of the way to get into the dark part of the escape. Now, as most of you are aware, the game automatically gives you the light cone here in the dark part of the escape sequence for this part of the game only. Any additional dark rooms that you have to find or you have to navigate through will require you to find the lantern. g3rd0 picking up another big 20 off one of those ropes. Unfortunately, not what he was looking for. With the a fighter sword, that's nice to find. It does mean that he's going to be able to hunt down all of the bats and ropes in this part, or in order to farm for bombs, should he choose to do so. But there's also a desire to just get through the sequence quickly. You don't want to spend too much time here if you don't need to. So a lot of the runners will actually just clear right, will just race up. But here we see mkosler choosing a slightly different path where he wants to actually farm for those bombs. So we'll see if it pays off for him in just a few moments. g3rd0 electing to just say, well, I'll have to come back later. Now, the problem with coming back later is if there was something like a lift upgrade in those 3 chests, the ability to get to the escape sequence 3 bombs there is very limited, as you typically need the lift upgrade to get there the shortcut way. You'll have to instead go all the way back through the castle to get here. So it may be difficult for our runners. It's kind of just one of those things that they have to make their way through. g3rd0, of course, getting out of the escape sequence at like 540 is an impressive time, but that's 1 whole room and 3 whole chests down from normal. So excellent timing, but is going to be a delay later on because of the necessity to check those 3 chests potentially. And with that, g3rd0 is going to head up towards the lumberjack house. We'll see if he chooses to. Oh, there's the bombs. All the bombs that he could have wanted right there in the tree. We'll see if he chooses to check out what's going on in Aga Cave. Looks like that's going to be the case. The lumberjack cave here will give us an indication as to whether or not he will have to clear Aga 1. Looks like it was some rupees, so that's a good indicator that that will not necessarily be the case at this time. mkosler instead is taking a shortcut here, which is allowing him to gain quite a significant amount of time, although not any bombs. And so that's going to, oh, there he gets his from the second tree pull, so he remembered that he could do that. That's excellent. As they make their way to Lost Woods, we see the hook shot here in the mushroom spot. Now that's a fantastic pickup. Opens up a lot of areas later on in the game. Not too much at this early juncture without the hammer, boots, or gloves, I mean. And 300 rupees here in the Bandits Hideaway is plenty of money for the runners to finance their way through Kakariko Village and get towards the Zora amount of 500 that they'll need. So really nice start for both of the runners here, despite the fact that they weren't able to pick up bombs in the escape sequence. So that'll be interesting to see if that plays a part in their progress as they make their way into Kakariko Village for the first time. All right, so we're going to get down into Blind's Hut first here on mkosler's side. He has 5 items to pick up here in this section of the map. And we'll see if we can get some direction as to where would be the best place to go in the following areas. We pick a big heart, second piece of heart, sorry. 5 bomb capacity upgrades, so nothing to write home about here. And 20 more rupees. The main area of Blind's Hut's not really paying off too well for the runners. And the back part, just another piece of heart, which is enough to acquire a full heart container for both of the runners. So hitting 4 hearts here, it's nice. But certainly not what they're looking for. And we'll try again with another 5 items here down in the well. So 20 more rupees to go along. Another bomb capacity upgrade. That's not really helpful at this point. There's a full heart container. A master sword upgrade, which is actually quite nice, and 20 more rupees. So we are getting close to having Aga potential. We just need the lantern at this point to be able to do Aga. But there's our moon pearl, so we're also getting a little bit closer to Dark World access. So it's really just going to be it's a race now to see what we get next. A lift upgrade and a hammer, and we'll have Dark World, or 2 lift upgrades, and we'll have Dark World access. There's the bottle of red goo. You can't really go wrong with getting a bottle here early on in the game, allowing us to check Sick Kid immediately without having to reroute back here. So that's a very nice thing for efficiency's sake. And if you show the Sick Kid some red goo, he'll give you a little bit of love. The last check of the Kakariko Village area that is available to our runners right now here is the back of the tavern. And we get a lift upgrade. So there's a glove. The power glove means that we will be able to go pick up those 3 chests there in the back of Escape very easily. It may be something that the runners decide to do fairly early on if they don't get anything out of Mini Moldorm Cave and Ice Rod Cave, as where I would expect them to be heading in the next part. mkosler is going to give us a look here on the library. We just see that it is 20 more rupees. And choosing to go straight through to the maze game, turns out it's just a 5 arrow capacity upgrade we see on g3rd0's side, so that gave him an opportunity to pull ahead. So you can see that when we are at a situation where we have runners of this caliber, they're neck and neck, back and forth, and it looks like g3rd0's going to go use that save and quit to go right to the back of Escape area, since he's right here, picked up those gloves, wants to see what it was he left behind, and it turns out that mkosler is also of the same mind. So we are basically going to be resetting at this point in just a few moments. I would imagine then that they'd save and quit and go to the south shore of Lake Hylia, unless of course they find something dramatic here, like full Dark World access and something else that would be interesting. So just 3 bombs. Where were they before? A single rupee in the map, so nothing really worth doing. g3rd0, of course, saving and quitting as we expected, and we'll head to his house in order to go down to the dam area, Mini Moldorm Cave, and Ice Rod Cave, which is the typical start for speedrunners of this game. So g3rd0 gets into the dam. We're going to get 2 items to check here. First, gets a good hookshot skip on that initial chest. Just gets 20 rupees out of it, but it does save him from having to exit and enter the dam area again. And we'll find out that in just a few moments what's sitting under the little lake here. Just 3 more bombs, so you can imagine, as you can imagine, the g3rd0's not going to pick that up. mkosler also getting the hookshot skip. And we're on our way to Mini Moldorm Cave. So another big, nice kind of pickup here with the hookshot is that hookshot is actually going to be able to defeat the Mini Moldorms in here, which makes this a significantly easier cave to deal with. Early on, when you don't have good weapons, an 8 bomb pickup to just replenish those bombs. That's excellent for g3rd0. It's a nice thing to pick up in here, and we have 5 more items to check. We get a tempered sword already off the bat, the fighter shield to go alongside it, blue mail. So here we are getting equipped, 5 more bomb capacity upgrade, and the Titan's mitts. So there's our Dark World access, ladies and gentlemen. We only have access through the Kakariko Village portal at this time, but that is a fantastic pickup. What an amazing cave there, to be honest. Tempered Sword really makes a lot of things smoother at the early stages. Blue Mail, of course, also when you're only at 5 hearts, really does simplify a lot of things. 424 rupees at this point for g3rd0, 437 on mkosler's side, means that we're probably we may not see a fake flipper skip to check all of the Zora's domain, but we may. It'll depend a little bit on what we get here in the Ice Rod Cave. Turns out when the Boo sprite wears blue mail, he turns into a blue Boo. And it's a Quake medallion here in the Ice Rod Cave. So g3rd0 saving and quitting out of that. He's probably going to head back to Kakariko Village and start the Village of Outcasts with that Titan's Mitt and start getting some Dark World information for us. And we'll see if mkosler does the same thing. Yeah, it looks like that's the plan. Now, I personally really enjoy having the Titan's Mitts early on because I don't like having to go with that long roundabout circuitous route to get to the Dark World access here. Now we get our map check. We see Turtle Rock is a pendant. So that's not so bad. We also see our 5/6 crystals in Palace of Darkness and in Swamp Palace, so that might be an interesting thing. We do have the sword here. g3rd0 can go ahead and full clear Swamp or Skullwood. Sorry, he has the sword. He has the fire rod. Looks like that will be his plan at this point. It is a crystal dungeon, so I like that. mkosler also following up with a map check here. First item out of Skullwoods is a piece of heart. There are 2 items to be found here in Skullwoods. And mkosler also choosing to go through the front part of Skullwoods first, so we're not seeing any divergence here in their routing. And picking up the big key here, we'll see a bomb jump across probably to check the contents of the big key chest. Excellent work on g3rd0's side. Gets that first try, picks up a small key for his troubles. Not really what you'd like to see at that point. Replenishing the bombs and off to the backside of Skullwoods. What this does mean, of course, is that we're going to have a very quick first crystal for our runners, probably in around that 20-minute mark. So fantastic for them. g3rd0 now enjoying. Oh no, gets wallmastered. That was a pretty clippy wallmaster. I haven't seen somebody get caught by that narrow of a margin in quite some time. And these g3rds could be quite a lot of trouble at this early part. But makes it way through in the second try. Just lost a few seconds there. And he's going to actually go ahead and bomb that wall. Unfortunately, doesn't need to. There's a full magic potion through that door, and that was what he was going for to help deal with the Mothula fight. But since he picked up the full magic pot off of the item from the drop of that monster, doesn't have to do so. And he is remembering to pick up a key here, so that's going to speed things up as well through the very back half of Escape. So I must say that the game has been dropping a lot of full magics for our runners. I just saw another one on g3rd0's side. So they've been very healthily keeping their magic topped up, which is going to be helpful when you have the fire rod as one of your primary weapons at this point. Oh, g3rd0's just not cooperating and giving g3rd0 a little bit too much trouble that he can handle with. He was trying to conserve magic there, and it looks like it bit him in the butt a little bit. He was unable to kill them. He didn't, or chose not to kill them. And as a result, he's going to want to walk all the way through this just to pick up that extra couple of magic. There's a little mini mana pot there. And he got another one for killing that. And the third one, so he actually managed to replenish a lot of his magic power there, so that was really nice. But we'll see if yeah, he's being a little more liberal with his magic usage, but does not have it now, and it has allowed mkosler to pass him into the Mothula stage, but they're still very close to one another. And mkosler takes down Mothula really quickly. Got bodied a couple of times, but gets a magic mirror for his trouble. So that's a great item to find here. Of course, it's definitely a necessary item as we do need it for Misery Mire and Swamp Palace. So great item pickup. Opens up several item locations that you can use. Cave 45, the Graveyard Ledge, in order to check some overworld locations. So really nice item. And g3rd0 following up just a few seconds behind. Oh no! mkosler accosted by the bandit. He chose to mirror back to the light world for his to get out of the Skullwoods. g3rd0 instead is going to take this different route. It's I guess technically longer to do this. Having the mirror is a little bit shorter to mirror out and go back into the dark world. It just depends on where you want to go. If g3rd0 decides to head over to the bumper cave area and do graveyard ledge, it might be a little bit better for him. And it looks like that's his plan. So just kind of getting a slight divergence here. mkosler through the chest game, picks up 100 extra rupees along with 300 more on top of that. g3rd0 gives a peek at the bumper cave there and sees that it's simply 300 more rupees, and that's not anything that he's going to want to pick up. Probably by the time he finds the cape, he's not likely going to need it. mkosler now in the bottom of the brewery grabs the boomerang, and g3rd0 is going to make use of the fact that he picked up this magic mirror to check out graveyard ledge. And 20 rupees there in the C-shaped house. And interestingly enough, g3rd0 decides not to pick up that B torpedo in the bottle there. He's just going to pass up on it.
Hello, how are we doing today?
And I am now joined by Yeah Boy. Thanks for showing up, giving us a little help out here. It's been tiring at the start of the race.
It's good to be here. So what have I missed so far?
So both of our runners have had just this first divergent pathway where they made their way through the opening part, got the fire rod and from the uncle, picked up all 3 sword upgrades all the way up to tempered, blue mail, and a hook shot. Got Dark World access, and they've both completed Skullwoods, and now they are making their way. It looks like mkosler's going through Thieves Town, and I would be surprised if g3rd0 doesn't follow suit. The big difference here is that g3rd0 has gone to Graveyard Ledge. They acquired the magic mirror after killing Mothula, and mkosler has not gone that way yet.
All right, so far it seems a very interesting race.
Yeah, it has been. They've actually gone back and forth in the lead a couple of times. Just small little execution errors have been making most of the difference, or little changes in optimizations. So it's been very exciting.
Well, in that case, I'm very glad I was able to join in.
So with g3rd0 just repeating things we've already seen on mkosler's side, the back half or the front half of Thieves Town didn't really provide us with anything too exciting, and we're going to hope for some more interesting things here in the backside. So yeah, just a single rupee I think was the one item in the front side of Thieves Town.
Well, then probably the backside will have something interesting for us.
Yeah, and we do know that since Turtle Rock is one of the pendants, along with Eastern Palace and Desert Palace, they really are heavily item dependent on finding things in order to clear out the next few dungeons after Thieves Town. Unless, of course, they choose to do things like Sequence Break Death Mountain, or Fake Flipper to get to Ice Palace.
I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we saw both of those runners take both of those options right away after they complete Thieves Town.
Yeah, of course, the Sequence Break on Death Mountain is actually really item beneficial for them because they'll be able to get the east side of both Light and Dark Death Mountain, considering they have Titan's Mitts already, and the mirror, and the hook shot. But they won't be able to get to Tower of Hera. Oh no,
Right,
they do have the mirror, so yes, they can get to Tower of Hera now.
Of course, they could also find the lamp in here, so that wouldn't be a sequence break at all.
That's true, or even the flute would be very nice. Would give them Misery Mire access area. And mkosler now starting off the blind fight. Getting really nice work through the first 2 phases here of blind, and gets a perfect kill, I would say.
I would say so too. That was a very clean, very nice to watch.
Mm. Grabs a swag net there to cap off the dungeon. And our second crystal at 25 minutes and 30 seconds or so. That's pretty nice. So it looks like Kosler's going to head over to the dig game and Jeremiah area. Does not have hammer pegs. Doesn't have the hammer, so he can't do hammer pegs. But will be able to, after finishing this up, go ahead and take the chest on a world tour and probably hit Stumpy, Cave 45, Hype Cave, and those environments as well.
And these locations will have a lot, could have the potential to give us a lot of items that we're missing.
Yeah, you really think if you're running at this point, you definitely want to find something of value in that section. Just 5 rupees there in the dig game. Fortunately, just an average number of digs. It wasn't like you had to dig 27 times just for that. And he is in fact choosing to go back up and rescue Jeremiah before heading along that south route.
Which for this stage in the game was not a bad decision to make at all.
Yeah, and g3rd0 finishing off blind. He is only behind, I think, because he chose to make that check over at Bumper Cave to Graveyard Ledge. He's not. It looks like he's further behind than he is, but really that's something that when mkosler makes those checks, depending on how he has to route them in, if he has to route them in, it could easily equalize.
I'd say this early on in the race, it'd be really hard to say who's actually in the lead because of routing decisions like that.
Yeah, it feels later than it is just because of some of the item loadouts that they have, but we're really in the early stages still. And so Kosler picks up the purple chest. It's going to give it a little tour around the world, at least the South Shore area. And what I like about this is that it's going to give him an opportunity to actually mirror over, open that chest up, and if he so chooses, check out what's going on in Agina's cave and maybe what's on Desert Ledge. And so it's always kind of tricky to find an efficient time to head into those locations. So this might be an opportunity for him to do that.
Absolutely. If I don't ever check Desert Ledge or Agina's Cave in the very beginning, I'll typically do that when I do Purple Chest, because that's just the most efficient time to do that otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So Cave 45 there turns out to be a 5 arrow capacity upgrade, nothing to write home about. And Stumpy here has 10 arrows that you can hold on to. 10 arrow capacity upgrade, so not very helpful for our runners at this point.
If I were either runners, I'd be hoping to find the bow pretty quickly just to make boss kills that much easier.
Yeah, they did pick up silver arrows along the way. I did miss that, I'm afraid, or when I mentioned it to you. And mkosler going right to Hype Cave. He could have gone around through the lifting up that rock, but since he was heading over to Hype Cave first anyways, it didn't really save him any time or cost him any time. Gets a piece of heart there from the first item. Second item will be the lantern, so that puts Dark Mountain into sequence. There's the cape for Bumper Cave, and 300 more rupees along with a full heart container. Of course, Bumper Cave is just 300 rupees on top of that, so unlikely he'll head that way.
Overall, this was a pretty hype for Hype Cave today. This tournament, I've seen a lot of unhyped Hype Caves, but that was pretty hype today.
I mean, it definitely had some important items. The cape will potentially, as soon as they find the hammer, unlock Spike Cave since they could use that magic goo in a bottle to extend their magic power. So it really was quite nice. And the lantern, putting all of those dark rooms in sequence, is an important piece of information for the runners to find.
And will also make the dark rooms just that much faster as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and as you said, mkosler now going to go check Desert Ledge and Agina's Cave. These two out-of-the-way locations can be sometimes hard to find, or hard to find time to route in, and this is about as good as you can get when you don't have boots or the flute yet.
It looks like Desert Ledge was just 3 bombs, so not that much useful for them.
Now, I imagine if you're one of the runners, like what you'd really like to find here is flippers, but just 20 rupees. Flippers would give them access to Ice Palace and Swamp Palace at this point. 2 more crystal dungeons that I'm sure they'd like to just work through as soon as they can. But now they're forced to check some either check a couple of one-off locations that they haven't visited yet, or make their way into. Oh no, they're going to go up Death Mountain. I'm sorry, they picked up the lantern.
And I would say Death Mountain would be the most logical choice at this point, especially since they have the hook shot and can access East Death Mountain. That's just so many item locations to go and check.
Yeah, just so much. Plus, there's also the only light world Crystal Palace to get through in Tower of Hera, and even though they just picked up the lantern, so they have fire, but they had fire out before, so it was definitely what was probably in their minds before they even made that south route. So, old man, safely through the cave. Let's see what kind of a tip he leaves mkosler for rescuing him. Just a piece of heart. And he's going to go up the traditional path first. Take a look at what's going on in and under Spectacle Rock before heading up to Tower of Hera. So blue rupee on top and red rupee underneath, so that's not going to entice him to make any extra checks.
And one of my favorite things about Randomizer is we've seen this here is you mentioned that they took different routes at the beginning, and now here we are and they're taking the exact same route and they're pretty much in the same location. That's really interesting to always see how different routes can converge them in the same place or the same routes.
Yeah, they really, when they're at this level of players, really going to probably find that happening between all of the races in this part of the tournament, where they will be matching up with one another at several points over the course of a race. So no key as of yet, so the basement may not be required. We did find the big key, so that at least lets them get all the way up to Trolldorn.
And for their sake, let's hope that either there's not a really important item or there's no item at all in the basement.
Yeah, it'd be nice if the key was in the basement, so.
As a runner, it's always nice to see that happen.
But we're having that become less and less likely. mkosler rejects that bomb location, didn't feel like he had it for the bomb jump. Tries again a second time. And there's the flippers, so that's a really great item to find here. That opens up a lot of the world. It, of course, opens up easier transit without the hammer between East and West Dark World fully, which is exciting for him, as well as Ice Palace and Swamp Palace.
Yes, that will open up a lot for us here. And it'll be interesting to see what he decides to tackle first and what they decide to tackle later on.
Yeah, and there's always that question. You know, a lot of people think Ice Palace, you know, oh, Troll Dorm. Why you got to be like that? Knocks mkosler down, allowing g3rd0 a little bit of opportunity to catch up some distance here. But as I was saying, it always is an interesting decision-making process for a runner where they can go to a high item density location like Swamp Palace, or a slightly lower but and less desirable dungeon, I would say, to go into like Ice Palace, but potentially having important items, and just to see what their decision-making process is, because go moding both of those dungeons, or having the opportunity to go mode either of those dungeons, is a tremendous advantage. So it's very unlikely.
I could see them choosing Swamp Palace over Ice Palace if they were feeling a little bit more behind and they felt like they needed to catch up on items. Because we know where the runners are, but they don't know where their opponents are right now.
Yeah, and they've both had a couple of moves that they would have thought would have been less than advantageous for them. So I could see how either could feel behind at this point. Of course, everything is going to depend on what they find here in Death Mountain when they go through the light and dark side of Death Mountain. There's so many items potentially to be here. If they get down to a single item, that's really going to affect, like, that they need, which is possible at this point. That's really going to impact where they decide to go and what their decision-making process is.
But
so
of course,
mkosler, go ahead.
But of course, before any of that, we're going to have to do the East Death Mountain checks.
mkosler setting up that magic mirror location right there between that entrance point into Paradox Cave and the way up through the Super Bunny Cave. Picks up the magic powder. A nice item to have. Doesn't open up any item checks until we find the hammer to go along with it, unless you want to waste your mirror. But they might do that.
I like having the powder as just a safety item to have. You know, if you're getting fairies and stuff.
Yep. So Paradox Cave, unfortunately, at this point, has proven to be less than ideal. There's a lot of items to be had here, and finding only mushroom or powder, sorry, as an actual permanent item, kind of disappointing. And here we see that mkosler is now able to use that magic mirror portal to head up Super Bunny Cave, just to be very efficient in his routing of this Dark Mountain checks. Nice hookshot skip there in Super Bunny Cave. And we find 300 rupees, followed up with 10 more arrows.
All these arrows, but still no bow.
Yeah. So the next big item location, density location to check out is going to be here in Hookshot Cave. mkosler is going to go ahead and see what Turtle Rock's pendant requirement is. It is ether, so we will have to find that, or we may have to find that at the very least. I forgot that Turtle Rock is in fact still a pendant dungeon, might not be required. The floating island has a piece of heart. So we'll get through Hookshot Cave and then head back down through Spiral Cave. And that will be the end of our Death Mountain checks, which at this point haven't paid off with anything fantastic outside of the flippers from Turtle Tower Pair, but I spoke too soon. As Hookshot Cave pays off doubly with both the flute and the Cane of Samaria.
That is incredible, especially after the Death Mountain we were having, to find those two items very last. That is an incredible thing to see.
And that puts Misery Mire completely into logic, as well as, if they choose, they could head into the Desert Palace, which is the green pendant location. but it certainly might change some of their routing decision making. Now, as before we were thinking, oh, well, there's your Swamp Palace and your Ice Palace checks available to you. This might actually prioritize that Misery Mire area ahead of them. We'll find out in just a few moments.
I could see that them both skipping on both Swamp Palace and Ice Palace until later on and try to hope that they're going to go both those dungeons.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I think that that's likely the case. The mkosler, of course, no matter what, they're probably going to activate their flute first things first. So that's why we're seeing the save and quit to Sanctuary. Can't get too many read into that, into their future decision-making process at that point. But I absolutely agree. I think Misery Mire is the place to go next. Even if Misery Mire is not a medallion that they have, there's 3 checks in the form of Checkerboard Cave and the Mire Shed, as well as 2 items in Desert that they may be able to acquire depending on if it's boots locked or not. And of course, the flippers being acquired also opens up a lot of East Dark World that was previously unavailable to the runners. So things like Catfish, Pyramid Ledge, even entry into Palace of Darkness is now available to them. And Mire is Quake, so they can go.
I'd imagine both our runners are probably going to go into Mire once they activate that flute. I imagine g3rd0 would probably take that similar route after they activate the flute, just to see what that pendant's going to be. And once they see that it's in logic, I could see them actually going and completing the dungeon.
Yeah, so...
Now, have either runners gone to Zori yet?
No, they have not made that check, so there's quite a few items there. There's a Cane of Burna in Checkerboard Cave, too. mkosler is saying, you know what, I don't need that, so I'm not going to waste my time getting it. I got better and more important places to go. g3rd0 also rejecting the Cane of Burna. It's one of those items.
At this stage in the tournament, and having the cape already, the Cane of Burna really isn't going to be that much use to them at all. Maybe helping them out a little bit with menuing, but that's going to be it for them.
Yeah, and when you have half magic as well, the cape is very strong as far as an invulnerability item goes, and has a little bit more versatility, I would say, than Cane. Just in that regard. mkosler making some excellent use of the hookshot to help speed things up here in Misery Mire.
Even though both runners are entering Misery Mire, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if one of them, thinking that they're behind, skips some item locations as soon as they found the big key and just go on and complete the boss here, and just go for the crystal.
Yeah, that might be interesting to see. It depends, of course. This is one of those funny dungeons where it really can lead you around by the nose and force you to full clear it, just hunting for the big key. As all of these little secondary keys, the small keys are basically unnecessary to complete the dungeon, and for the most part, it's really just the big key that you are looking for to get through to the boss. So there's one of our items, a 5-bomb capacity upgrade. mkosler's going to go ahead and check the long cutscene. It's not longer than any other cutscene, it just feels long.
We could see a vanilla big key here then.
No, there's still the button switch, which we just saw g3rd0 pick up, so just having the big key there, so we do know that it's not going to be here for mkosler's side. Sorry, I missed it on the first glance. But he as well is hunting for items, so neither of the runners feeling like they are too rushed for time. They want to make sure they're thorough. There's the second item in the vanilla big key chest for mkosler, and it's just a 10 bomb drop, so he'll pick up his big key in just a few moments and start making his way towards the back of the dungeon.
There is still the big key chest, though.
Yeah, and g3rd0 did unfortunately missed the hookshot there if he was planning on doing it. Gonna retry that.
And just another small key there. And a third small key for g3rd0 there. So I believe that's all the chest locations we've checked in Mire except for the boss.
So yeah, down we head. And since we have no boots, it's going to be a fairly standard way through this bottom half of Misery Mire. Yeah, people in chat asking about the spooky action glitch, but no boots, no glitch. And we can see here the runners are literally one screen away from one another at this point. And with no bow on Vitreous, it's going to come down to execution. There could be an opportunity here for either runner to pick up a little bit of time.
And it's gotta hurt knowing that you have the silver arrows, but no bow to defeat Vitreous with, especially since the silver arrows and the bow make it so much easier to defeat.
Yeah, both runners making use of that magic powder pickup to collect that one anti-fairy. And we're going to use cape strats on mkosler's side. No cape safety strats on g3rd0's side, and that really did give him a lot of additional time. Now he gets to play smack the ball around. Getting a really nice position here. Simultaneous deaths on Vitreous, amazing.
That was literally at the same time.
Yeah, they are 100% in sync at this point. Now, g3rd0 did miss an item, I think. He didn't pick up, and he's going to have to head back into Misery Mire. Unfortunately for him, it's just that item. It's just the 10 bombs. He didn't go through the cutscene there. mkosler, instead of moving on to another crystal dungeon that he can complete, is going to go ahead and see if there's any action here in Desert Palace. And I like this as the play. Desert Palace is either going to be really quick for him to deal with. He's going to see that he's boots locked, or perhaps he'll pick up both of items early on. Even if it's the worst case scenario where he is able to make his way all the way through the dungeon, it's not going to end. There you go. It's not going to be at least that. He won't be able to pick those two far right chests. It's fast, and in the worst case, you walk away with a green pendant, which might be important. And nope, it is boots locked, so he's done. And it looks like his play is Ice Palace. And I would imagine Zora first.
I would make that play too. With their rupee count right now, I would imagine they would be going for that first. Or maybe they're going for Hobo first.
Yeah, they haven't done anything over here. This is the first time they're seeing the Lake Hilly object, Waterfall of Wishing, and Zora's Ledge. Like, so neither runner has any information as to what is in this particular area of the world. So g3rd0 picks up those 10 bombs, probably a little frustrated that he didn't have to go back in for that.
That could lead him to start feeling a little bit behind in that regard then. So we could see some more aggressive riding decisions from him.
Mm-hmm. And that, along with that early death he took in Skull Woods that slowed him down, might play a role. And he heads back to the Kakariko village there, interestingly enough. He's going to go ahead and head back to the Dark World and do what I imagine the north route, over to Catfish and then mirror into Zora from there. And I like this routing decision on mkosler's side. It isn't really going to net him a whole bunch more additional item checks, but it will get him that graveyard ledge that he hasn't been able to see. Without the boots, he can't do Bonk Rocks and he can't do King's Tomb. But he is going to be able to look at Bumper Cave, which he has not done since he did pick up the cape. And that might play a role. That might have been an important check. We know, of course, that it isn't. And the reason why our runners are taking this long circular route away from those two murder birds is because they hurt and they're hard to kill. It's funny to watch people just avoid them instead of going what would appear to be the faster route, even in a speedrunning type situation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we know here that this is just a bottle with a B in it here in Graveyard Ledge, because g3rd0 has already shown it to us quite some time ago, immediately following the Skull Woods play. So again, we're going to see the runners kind of falling into sync with one another a little bit more. And g3rd0 is also making this route to check out Catfish, mirror over to the Zora domain before choosing what dungeon to go into.
And I'm willing to bet that whatever dungeon you choose to go to next, whether it be Ice Palace or Swamp, is going to make a big difference here. I believe whatever dungeon they choose to have could have an important item for them, for all we know.
Yeah, and if they really are hoping for a go mode situation, they might actually carry this route all the way down south past the Pyramid Ledge and head into Palace of Darkness in the hopes that they find something necessary there, just to give them a greater opportunity for a go mode scenario in Swamp and Ice. But we'll have to wait and see. That would be a pretty gutsy call. It's just possible with their routing. So Waterfall of Wishing just has a couple of bombs and some rupees. 20 rupees there on the Catfish. Nothing to write home about. A full heart container there on the Zora ledge. And chat brings up that I hadn't even considered as well. There is 3 chests in the back of Saharshala's hut that no one's taken a look at as well. So there's a fairly strong draw to make that unorthodox play at this point.
Yes, because for all we know, the hammer could be in the back of Saharshala's hut.
20 rupees there on Zora, so really strong life lesson. And g3rd0 is walking back down. So this tells me that he's thinking about making that play all the way, and so is mkosler. Either they're going to head into And I don't imagine yet. They're both running all the way down. They're going to go back to their Dark World and carry on this route. g3rd0's going to go ahead and use the Whirlpool here instead to go to Ice Palace. Oh no, he hasn't checked Hobo yet, so he might be doing that. And mkosler is going back to the Dark World. Oh, so g3rd0 just wanted to get a look at the Hylia Island there.
Very interesting decisions. I might actually be inclined to go ahead and do Ice Palace at this point, especially when you route in Zora like that.
Yeah, that's just one of those very strange kind of decision-making processes. Both of these runners are playing it very similar to one another. Like, although there's been some very minor divergences, the large-scale decision-making paths have been identical to one another. And at this point, aside from the Hobo check, they are pretty much even on locations. So 3 bombs on Pyramid Ledge.
And being almost an hour into this race and still not seeing any major divergences is quite an amazing thing to see, especially there's so many different decisions they could make at this point in the game.
Yeah, and you know, we've been thinking about, and I'm sorry because I've been making a mistake as well. Chat kind of correctly reminding us. Without the hammer, neither Ice Palace nor Swamp Palace is as big a draw as I thought. So Palace of Darkness here, even though it also typically needs the hammer as well, just has a lot more available to the runners without. Unless, of course, they wind up bow locked. They do have a potion if they do, if it does, to sequence break the bow lock situation. But at this point, I think that the seed kind of has to give them something. Saharshala with a whole lot of nothing in his hout. And I would ask, do you think that you go into Pendant Eastern Palace before you go into Pod, or?
I think I might check it at this point, just because Eastern Palace is one of those dungeons where it's really easy just to check a couple of items and then leave and dip out. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if after they unlock the dungeon, they both went inside of Eastern Palace before they tackle Palace of Darkness, just to see if they could find that hammer.
Or even check to see if it is bow locked and then say, maybe I'll go into Eastern to see if the bow's there. And so it turns out that it technically is bow locked, so mkosler is going to do that. So first item check here in Eastern Palace is just 20 more rupees. And I must say, I'm sure if I was a runner in this particular seed, I'd be getting a little frustrated with the amount of rupees they've been finding instead of anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would start to be feeling a little bit behind if I was either of these runners. With the amount of items I have and the time we've gone through this game, I'd start to be feeling a little bit behind if I was either one of these runners.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how the the hammer really makes you feel like you're behind, like you're missing something super important. And of course, it is a very important item, but it is possible for it to be a very late game item in a seed, and that seems to be the case with this particular setup. 59 minutes in and no hammer is never a place where you want to be. So another 20 rupees is the second item here in Eastern Palace. No big key means that we are looking at vanilla big key. And they are going to have to clear up to at least that big key chest to find that third item.
And it could be vanilla bow.
Yeah, we do know that this does have to be the big key, so... And they really, really, really want this to be a progression item here in Eastern Palace, since logically Palace of Darkness is closed off to them at this point. The only other chests available to them, I believe, there's the bow, so vanilla bow. Now, mkosler's thinking a little bit about it, and I was wondering if he was going to go ahead and clear Armos Knights, but it is a pendant dungeon, and he's like, you know what, never mind, and I'll head into the bow side of Palace of Darkness instead.
And g3rd0 is not too far behind, so we might see g3rd0 go for Armos Knights there, but I do not believe Armos Knights is actually going to have an item. And being a pendant dungeon, then it will not make too much sense to go and clear that.
Yeah, it would be a really surprising call. Maybe if you'd already picked up one or two pendants along the way, you'd do it just in case, but as a first one, I don't see that being the decision-making process that he makes. And g3rd0 actually, yeah, there he goes. He thought about it. It looked like he started to head back in, but no. And what that does mean is that they could have technically had this bow from a very early stage in the game. Those early dark rooms in Eastern Palace are typically one of the first sequence breaks you see in Link to the Past Randomizer, so they didn't. And getting the lantern in Hype Cave meant that this was available to them fairly shortly thereafter. It was just not a very efficient place to check.
And we know that both runners are both in about the same location, but both runners don't know that. So if they found the bow this late on into the game, they might start to think, oh man, my opponent might have gotten the bow already. Oh no. And if there's an important item in here, then they could start to make more aggressive decisions because they think they're behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they find something like hammer here in Palace of Darkness, vanilla hammer, to go along with that vanilla bow, it would be a very scary thought in the back of their minds, I imagine. Because I believe at this point, hammer is all that we need.
Looking at everything, I think you might be correct, unless we have to do a dip into Turtle Rock.
Oh, I guess technically boots may end up being required for Ganon's Tower.
We've got a 1 in 22 chance of that happening, so it could very well happen.
I have seen it before.
I have too.
And there's a French vanilla hammer. So not in the actual vanilla location, but close enough.
And we've got some sword slashes, so you can see the frustration.
Yeah, and that's really just very telling. Like, there's the big key to go along with it, and mkosler's going to treat this like go mode, I believe. Or perhaps not. Maybe he's thinking. But every minute he spends thinking is another minute he's falling behind. So yeah, he's done with that. He's got to commit. Now that's interesting. He was just like half a screen away from another item check he could have gone to. He was just not willing to do so.
If you're banking on the fact of already being in go mode, it makes sense to go ahead and skip that, especially if you find the bow and the hammer that late. Both runners could start to feel behind there. I know I'm starting to feel like a broken record here, but I've been in that same situation before.
And so now we are going to see go mode for the rest of Palace of Darkness, go mode in Ice Palace, go mode in Swamp Palace, and a straight race up to Ganon's Tower. So really, going to be a real quick finish. This seed all of a sudden just finished up really fast with this Eastern Palace, Palace of Darkness check.
Yes, and this is all going to come down to execution.
Mm-hmm. You know, 12 hearts, blue mail, tempered sword, silver arrows. It's really all you can ask for from a seed at this stage. It's going to be a nice, quick seed. Ice Palace is about 3 minutes or so in go mode. Swamp Palace, not much longer. We're about half a screen behind one another, maybe a full screen behind each other. You can see mkosler not using sword to help him with this Hammer kill. This is technically faster, but it is possible to accidentally run face first into Helmasar. g3rd0
Although mkosler did have that red potion though, so
yeah,
they could have afforded to waste a couple of lives on that.
Yep. And g3rd0 also changed his mind, went for the faster strat halfway through once he got a feel for it. And we're going to see a mirror and flute over to probably, I would say, Swamp first, maybe into Ice. It really doesn't matter at this point. When you're go-moding both, it's just 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You already have half magic, so getting through Ice Palace is even easier than before. And mkosler decides to take the Ice Palace play first. g3rd0, it looks like, is going to go for Swamp first.
So now we really get that route divergence that we weren't really seeing earlier, although both of them are in go mode, and it will all be up to execution at this point.
Yeah, as viewers, it's always more fun when the runners do have some divergence. It's just less so when it's in go mode. Because it's not like there's an item that one of them will find at this particular juncture that's going to be tremendously better. There are very few chests that they're even going to open, only the ones that they have to.
Although we are just assuming they're in go mode, because that big key could still be on the ledge in Ganon's Tower.
Oh, absolutely, but they are making that call themselves, so it could come back to haunt them. And while that would be interesting, it would be incredibly frustrating for them if Boots is sitting in one of these dungeons that they're going to go mode through. And it would make for an incredibly costly second phase of this race if they get all the way to Ganon's Tower and have to turn around.
But at the same time, I guess we could see Boots inside of Ganon's Tower as well, technically.
Yeah, and if this does turn out to be the case where they see the Ganon's Tower big key on that tower, you'll probably see both runners do a full clear of everything they can in Ganon's Tower before saving and quitting out. or leaving and searching for these past locations. So we see that these two dungeons are almost as fast as one another when you're in go mode.
And so far, neither of them are finding those boots. And it'll be interesting to see if g3rd0 decides to go and check any of the chests in the back of Swamp here, or if they're just going to assume that they're in go mode.
Yeah, I feel like the ones that you're going to definitely walk right past, for instance, the chest on the way to Argus, you'd probably pick up, but it'll depend as well as how tight of a race he feels that it is. Oh, mkosler getting a really nice initial start off here on Cold Stare, loses it. g3rd0 does pick up that one chest and finds a full heart container. And so that's one dungeon down for mkosler, and g3rd0's single dungeon is about to finish off fairly quickly.
So our winners here will just about be trading places here in just a couple minutes then.
Yeah, and you can see just how fast these two dungeons are when go mode. They're just incredibly quick.
And so our runners here will be just trading places, with mkosler going into Swamp Palace and g3rd0 going into Ice Palace. So not too much we're going to be seeing that's going to be new or different, unless one of them decides to check an item location. But at this point, it's a 1 in 22 chance for Ganon's Tower to be boots locked. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening here. And why don't we take this time to give our runners a quick shout out here as well, since they're already going in the dungeons we've already done before. mkosler and g3rd0, I'll be linking their names in chat in just a couple seconds here. But they are been racing very well today. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to see more, we'll be linking their Twitch channels in chat so you can follow them if you'd like to see more of what they're doing.
Yep, and so both runners just making their way through these go mode dungeons. It's amazing to watch. Just how close this matchup is, it's exciting.
Yes, I don't think I've seen a race this close in a very long time. And especially not a randomizer race either. Because typically by this point, one of them has made a decision that has led them to end up getting very far ahead, or one of them just made a running mistake. But both runners have pretty much made the same decisions all throughout the entire race. And now both of our runners are on to their respective boss fights, having just traded places. So both of them are pretty much in the same place at this point with their bosses, respectively.
Yeah, this is like the third time we've had like perfect sync between these two runners. And mkosler throwing out a couple fire rod shots into a spin there to finish off Argus. And it's literally going to be a race up the mountain now, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are interested, you could participate in the big key guessing game. Choose a number between 1 and 22 in the channel. Now, of course, we are on the ALTTP Randomizer, so we don't have the leaderboard, but that doesn't stop you from joining in the game. So throw out in chat where you think the big key is going to be located, and we'll see who is the winner. Where do you think we'll find the key today?
Now, personally, I always go for chest number 7, just for consistency's sake.
I'm going to go with 1. I think it's just going to be super fast.
For the runner's sake, I hope you're right.
But, of course, chat wants to troll with the 3s for that boot situation.
I've commentated a couple of races where it was actually the 22nd chest. It was tile room. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up making that play or if they decide to wait that for last, depending on how far behind they actually feel. And if I were either player, I'd be nervous about not having the boots. Although it is that one location, I'd still have that thought in the back of my mind. Where are the boots? Am I going to get boots locked in the middle of Ganon's tower right here?
Yeah,
this could all come crashing down for the players right here.
Yeah, it's just so nerve-wracking being in this particular position. And g3rd0's going to be the first one into the tower, so he is who we will be following count. It will be his side that is where the big key count will go from. So if they diverge here, sorry about your luck. And it looks like he's going to go for standard path towards the right side first. And picks up a fighter shield and 5 arrow capacity upgrade. So heading back to the left now.
And we have just a heart container on that ledge, so we are not boots locked here. So they were in go mode this entire time. And now both of our runners are about to get that big key, and now both runners have the big key, so now it's just a mad dash to the finish.
So that was a 6. Congratulations, 6. If you chose 6, you were victorious. Of course, anybody can say they picked 6. There's no rules.
Did I say 7? I thought I said 6 this entire time.
I know I for sure said 6, so.
So now we're purely in a state of execution at this point.
Yeah, this is very close with tempered sword and silver arrows. This could come down to something as simple as a double where the opponent got a triple on Ganon, or a double or triple on Aga 1, or how many silver arrows you manage to get into Ganon along the way. This is going to be a very close race.
I agree. This is this has got to be the closest race I've seen in a very long while.
So g3rd0's gauntlet going a little slow, I must say. You know, getting bounced around on these ice as well. Letting mkosler get ahead, catch up a little bit, rather.
And now both players have made it through the gauntlet. Now it's just a couple more floors and then they're all done.
Sorry about that. Accidentally kicked my mic cord out. My bad.
Rest in peace, headphone users.
Just doing a headphone check for you guys. And Trolldorm 2 goes down on g3rd0's side real quick there.
And now we've got g3rd0 going into his Aghanim 2 fight.
So it's really going to come down now here to execution on this last fight. So just a couple of singles, I think, so far. Ooh, nice finish there on g3rd0's side.
I believe that was a triple, too.
Yeah, it certainly looked like it, so. Just that little advantage there for g3rd0. Probably going to be important here as mkosler starts his. Ooh, gets a definite double first. That might have also been a triple on mkosler's side. Ooh, but a 0 there on the second wave. And a double there, so that was just a double in the first phase. g3rd0 getting some excellent positioning here on Ganon, but very low on health. I hope he's paying attention. He's at 1.5 hearts. And he gets hit! Oh my goodness, no! I don't know if he has a fairy. I believe that that's going to be a game over situation, so all of his advantage is gone as he jumps back down into the Ganon fight mere seconds ahead of mkosler. Wow!
This is going to come down to literally the last second. Oh my goodness. I have never seen a race this close.
And what's worse for him is he definitely has a red potion in his inventory. I believe he hasn't used it unless he's used it and I wasn't paying attention. Oh, it gets a really nice location here to get some spins off on Ganon in phase 2. That should be helpful for him to stay ahead. It's going to switch into the cape this time. He's got low on magic, though, and that might be part of his concern. And both of these runners are in phase 3 almost simultaneously. mkosler is going to have slightly different Ganon bounces than g3rd0 will because of the second time through for g3rd0. And they're both into phase 3 for mkosler. Phase 4 now for g3rd0. Also mkosler in phase 3. Gets a single arrow and the torch glitch right off the bat for g3rd0. Excellent. And we lose signal there on mkosler's side of things. Unfortunately, at this tense moment, that is literally the worst thing that could have happened. I apologize, but I'm sure that we're still containing information. And g3rd0 is finished Ganon off and is going to be heading across the bridge here. We're going to find out in just a few moments how this ended up. Ladies and gentlemen, as we carefully watch the Speed Racing TV official times. Oh my goodness. Our official Speed Racing TV times have put mkosler in at 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 25 seconds, with g3rd0 at 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 27 seconds. That is within the margin of error for what is considered to be a draw between these two players. And we can see that that is likely going to be what happens.
That is an incredible thing to see happen. And
wow.
I'm speechless right now. Honestly, speechless.
So yes, chat, because the runners are streaming, they will have their records if it does need to be scrutinized. But we can see here that that is well within the expectation for the runners, just based on where they were at that point. So it's not a surprise. And that does have it will potentially have an impact on the way that this matchup is going to wash out. So we will be trying to get a hold of both of these runners and bring them back in for a chat in just a few minutes. As soon as we have access to them in the channel, we'll be talking with both of them about this dramatic finish. What an exciting end! That it's all going to come down to that death on Ganon by g3rd0. Wow.
I have never seen a race that close before. Normally, I see some kind of divergence that sets them really apart, but we really did not see that this race. We saw them really play. They both played very well, and then sub 130 is a really good time to have in a randomizer race.
Yeah, and we're just going to get the runners. They're both ready to have a chat with us, and they'll be joining us in just a few moments. Looks like we have mkosler in the channel with us. GG on that amazing race.
Hey, how's it going?
It's pretty good. We're just waiting here as we're trying to get g3rd0 into the channel with you, but I'm not sure if you were watching, but we were certainly hanging on by the edge of our seats. Welcome to g3rd0 as well into the channel. GG on that fantastic seed that you just provided entertainment for us.
Yo, thanks, GG.
So first off, the elephant in the room, that was a very close finish. Official race TV times has you within 2 seconds of one another, which I've had confirmation from the admin is going to come out as a tie.
Yep.
In which case, I'm sorry, guys, you're going to have to coordinate a potential third match in the event that you split the remaining two. But exciting for the viewers, of course. I'd like to start off by asking, at this point, g3rd0, you were substantially ahead there on the Ganon fight. Taking that death, did you not have a red potion, or had you already used that at some point?
I don't think I had a potion.
We had that potion. We got it super early. We had a red potion.
Yeah, but I used it somewhere. That was the only one.
We weren't sure if you had it or not, and it was just so close. Those fire bats, and you were low on magic power, and I assume that's why you were trying to avoid using.
Yeah, I know how to do the 1+1 with boots there, but not without boots. So I just figured I'd use the cape, and then I noticed that I'm low on magic, so I kinda panicked there.
Yeah, you used it during the Wizrobe sequence, according to chat. So they were on top of it, the potion. So dramatic matchup. You guys were in lockstep with one another for pretty much the vast majority of the seed. I'll start with mkosler. Were you feeling a little bit behind after that Eastern Palace into Palace of Darkness play, netting you both the hammer and the bow? Basically vanilla style.
No, I mean
there were some slashes.
We never. I mean, it was just because it was funny because both of those items were vanilla. But like, when we went to South Shore, right? I think that's when we got gloves in mini mold, and at that point the entire world was open to us, and so it was like, to me, at what point would you ever go, like, what point would somebody go, oh, rather than going into the dark world, I'm gonna go to Pendant Eastern Palace? So when I found it, it was just like, okay, cool, that's interesting, but I didn't feel behind because of it, even though it sounds like I was.
No, actually, you guys, again, as I said, very neck and neck at that moment. It was, I think you might have been at the most 2 or 3 screens difference at that point. And I couldn't tell you at that particular juncture who came out of Palace of Darkness first because you were going back and forth so frequently there. g3rd0, same kind of question. How are you feeling at that point, you know, making that call to head to all the way across the eastern or the north route, having you had already gone to Graveyard Ledge, so it was a little less advantageous for you all across the north there before heading down to Pod. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Like, there wasn't much else left, to be honest, and I felt like the flippers had to lock something, so it was either in ice or in Pod and EP, I felt like, and since it was a good opportunity to get all of the overworld stuff out of the way, including all the flipper spots, so I just went for it. And I didn't really feel behind at that point as well, for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. Now there was a moment, I don't want to read anything into it, mkosler, but you picked up the hammer and you kind of were on your map screen or on your item screen for the mirror.
Yeah, I was just going through my head, just making sure. Okay, did I miss? Is there anything else that I'm missing? Because I'm about to go mode, you know, ice, swamp. I just mirrored out after I found the big key from the back of Pod. And so I was just like, is there anything that I'm missing? Yeah, I guess there's, you know, the 1 in 22 chance that we totally get boned with a boots required GT big key. So I was just giving myself a few seconds to make sure that there wasn't anything that, because both the go mode items just came relatively quick to each other.
Yeah, it was just kind of, we were just, you know, curious as to thinking, like, is there anything we were actually taking a moment want to be looking for? And of course, the only answer to that question would have been the potential fear that boots might have been required. Does that weigh heavily on your minds as you're heading up to Ganon's Tower, or is it one of those, well, if I do need them, I need them, and gotta expect that my opponent is also making the same call?
Heavily, no. I mean, you get kind of, when you go mode, so many dungeons from there, it's a little more worrying than say, oh, I just happened to finish, TR after I hadn't been able to go mode anything. So it's a little more worrying. Okay, did g3rd0 happen to find the boots somewhere because he took some weird different route? And I just skipped over them in, I don't know, left side swamp or something ridiculous. But it wasn't a huge worry.
Yeah, I generally don't worry about it as well. Like, I know most people don't, so even if it's on the torch, it's rather unlikely that my opponent will have boots at that point.
Yeah, so we're just seeing the collection rates here for you guys on this seed. 119 on your side, mkosler, 121 on your side. So just that should give you an indication just how mirror you two were in what you were going through throughout the whole course of the matchup. It was really, really tight. I know, of course, tomorrow I believe you have scheduled your next matchup.
Yeah, same time tomorrow.
Okay, so for all of the viewers who are watching, if you want to see what I can only imagine is going to be another incredibly close race, it seems that the two of you very evenly matched with skill. Very few, there was some, I would say some small little mistakes and little like oopsies along the way for both runners, but it was by and large by the book. So congratulations on giving us such a fantastic show. Again, came down to the wire. I do have one final question for you, mkosler, because unfortunately you started to drop a few frames during that Ganon fight. And it was like, do you recall, did you have like, did you get a triple arrow on Ganon at one point, or did you just get two doubles?
No, I got two doubles. And I guess it's weird with the streaming stuff, because I never noticed any frame drop or whatever until, we were in the 15 minutes of silence while we were waiting for the stream to catch up. And then my internet died later. So I wonder if, because it died, X number of minutes in the future, it affected the stream delay at that point. So it wasn't like, oh, I was in the middle of Ganon and then I noticed OBS yelling at me because I lost connection. But it might have looked like that to y'all.
Well, yeah, you were just starting like the opportunity to hit him with silver arrows, so like a little bit into phase 4, and then all of a sudden you were you froze up on us, and then we saw you at the you win screen, or at the end game screen. So it really came down to the Speed Racing TV time for us to know exactly where you were. But of course, as Chad has asked, all of that information is all on the up and ups. There's your local thing in case there was ever a question. But in any doubt, they are absolutely well within that margin of error that's requiring the tie. So thanks to both of you guys for putting on that amazing race. Fans who are viewing, the runners' channels are both up in the chat box. I'm sure both of them would appreciate a follow. And I don't want to keep you guys for too long, so you can have a little rest, take a break, and we will be happily and excited to watch you tomorrow at the same time for the second matchup here in this first round of the bracket stages. So GG to both of you. No one to congratulate at this point, but we wish you both good luck going forward in the next couple of matches that you have to play, and potentially you guys may have the history or the record of being the first best of 3 that requires 4 games. So we'll find out. So thanks to both of you for watching. And thank you to all of for playing, sorry. And thank you to all of the viewers for watching the race today. My name was Crozone80. I was joined a little late, but thankfully by Yaboy, who stepped in an emergency situation. Additionally,
I'm glad I can make it.
Additionally, thanks a lot to Yonker's wife for tracking, keeping all of the lights lit up at the bottom of the screen. Did a fantastic job. Helps us and helps you enjoy the race. And as well, Synac for keeping things behind the scene running smoothly. Thanks to everybody and all of the volunteers who are participating and helping out in this tournament. And we will see you in the next race. For those of you who are wondering, we have coming up at about 3:30 on Speed Gaming, Cine versus Pink Kitty Rose is going to be taking place at 3:45 p.m. or sorry, at 4 p.m. Elminster and Scianti on Speed Gaming 5. And then at 4:30 today, Jet and Yagamoth will be starting up on Speed Gaming 3. So lots of exciting matches up today. Please be sure to watch. Thanks for following, and we'll see you next time.